So welcome so much to Figma Miami. We're trying to build a community, a design community around Figma. Figma has gave us this great opportunity to do a local chapter here in Miami, and of course we'll talk all about user experience, product design, um, you know, uh, cool tips on Figma. So welcome everyone. Bienvenidos a todos. So we're very international here, so feel free to speak Spanish if you want on the chat. So about Figma Miami. So Friends of Figma exists so we can share the best practices in user experience, product design, and coming up together to help each other to learn, and especially to lift everyone up. We are open to everyone interested in learning more about Figma and design in general. And we encourage to have fun, to be bold, and foster inclusivity. It's really important for us. So a little about myself. I'm Beto Navarro. I'm originally from Ecuador. I have been in Miami for around 20 years. Of course, I'm a UX, UI product designer. My background is heavily relied on graphic design. I worked in advertising and marketing for several years. And then around 4 years ago, I did the full switch to UX. And yeah, I'm basically the host. But if anyone is interested in joining me during this journey to help organize events, please feel free to message me so we can start planning events together. It will be very cool to have more people like helping on the organizing. So about Friends of Figma in general is a worldwide community around Figma. There are 77 chapters worldwide, and you can check there's events always in different cities, and because we are everyone's remotely and everything is virtual, you can join and see any of the talks around. Of course, if you want to learn more about the other talks or the other city chapters, you can just go to friends.figma.com, check them out. I mean, it's not just the Miami, but it's for everyone. It's for the world. It's for everyone to share knowledge. So it's very helpful, just if you're curious and learning more aspects of Figma in general or user experience, just check them out. So Friends of Figma Miami, we're looking for a sponsor now. And why an sponsor is just because hopefully by next year, hopefully we want to have a live event, right? We want to be on a local and actually have people. Hopefully, this pandemic passes and everything will go back to normal by next year. So it's just a sponsor that, to give us a space to be on. And Friends of Figma and the chapters are non-profit, so we don't charge for anything. Everything is for free, and and this is just a volunteering that we do because we love design, we love to share knowledge, and that's why we are doing this. So if you're interested, just feel free to message me. And we have these feature attendees. Thank you so much for the people that did this. This is open for everyone. It's not just for the feature speaker, that is, for example, Raul in this case. So, just get out there, try to do a little networking. It always helps. And, thank you so much for the people that did this. And now, Raul, thank you so much for joining us. So he will be talking about the remote collaboration in COVID era. So basically, his journey of what happened during this pandemic and how his team basically switched to Figma. So basically, it's just the journey. A little background of him is that he is the UX design manager at Restaurants Brands International. So basically, he works with this, big name company called Burger King, as well as Popeyes. He will just share this with us. And Raul, if you want to add something, or I can just give you the control of of the presentation.
I could introduce the RBI. I have actually in my presentation, I'm kind of have an introduction of RBI and what we're
Okay,
doing.
so now you can share your screen.
All right. Everybody can see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen. And now I'll shut myself.
Okay. So I work for RBI. I actually joined RBI 2 weeks before COVID hit. So I only know the office for 2 weeks, basically. I was only there. I was essentially the first designer, in-house designer to join the team. RBI, we have 3 franchisees that we support, Popeyes, Burger King, and Tim Hortons. I think many of you may know Burger King and maybe even Popeyes because of our chicken sandwich. Tim Hortons is very popular in Canada. There's some in the US, but primarily it's a Canadian company. So we don't have any here in Florida, although I have had their coffee in the office and it's great. Give you some background about myself. So I joined RBI as a UX design manager. I started out from graphic design. I studied at RISD. Tammy and Tana I went to school with them. They're here in the meeting. I'm actually a Miami local. I went to New York School of the Arts. I started out as a visual artist. Loved painting, and then got into design school, and I decided, hey, let me learn design. So I got into graphic design. After graduating from design school, it was during a time that was very difficult to find a job. So the first thing I did was build a website with Flash. This was a long time ago. And that basically spearheaded the rest of my career, because from building a website in Flash, I got my first job just from an agency that saw my Flash site and they liked it and they wanted me to do the same thing for them. And they hired me full time. From then, I basically developed a real love and passion for interactive. I worked for Elastic People, who's a creative agency that does a lot of designs for music industry, people that at the time were not that popular, like reggaeton wasn't popular. We did a lot of reggaeton albums, Ricky Martin, Luis Fonsi, a lot of Sony Music musicians. We did a lot of real estate. We did some branding. My focus at the time was doing a lot of print, and I did some digital design. Then after being at Elastic People, I went on my own for a while. I think I did that for 4 years before I realized I needed to work as part of a team. I enjoyed being with other designers, with other creatives. So I joined Perry Ellis. I started at Perry Ellis as a digital designer, moved up to a design manager, and eventually became a user experience manager, designer, kind of doing all the user testing and helping a lot of our designers. So Perry Ellis, a lot of people don't know, Perry Ellis owns multiple brands. Original Penguin, which a lot of people are familiar with, Cuvavera, Farah, Callaway. So when I was at Perry Ellis, I was working on several e-commerce websites. We did emails. We worked on some native apps. It was a broad spectrum of digital solutions. So after Perry Ellis, I was there for 8 years. I started at RBI, essentially focused primarily on all the digital platforms. So RBI, we have 3 franchisees that we support, and we support them through native apps, web apps, POS, kiosk, even admin portals, support portals. So there's a lot of stuff we're designing. Our goal is basically to foster like good design within all these platforms, and to think of both the users, like the people that go to Burger King, the people that order burgers and chicken sandwiches and coffee from Tim Hortons, to the franchisees, who are the companies who are providing the best service to their customers. and providing the tools so that they could update the menu, they could update the website, create offers that make sense. So that's essentially what we're doing. The team is big, it's growing. It's made up of product designers, a lot of engineers. We work alongside with brands who have marketing teams. We also work alongside a lot of like vendors and even franchisees to support them in all their needs, both in POS, in the web apps, any user interface that they require their support. This is our team. Our CTO is Teddy. He's a startup founder, knows technology really well. My boss is Ellie. He's the head of product. He's in charge of customer and like user experience. We do a lot of, he's big on like focusing a lot on like the user, understanding the user, testing things. And then we also have Asher, who's the head of engineering. And his job is to make sure we have the most talented engineers, which we do. We have a lot of engineers who are amazing. And our job is to give them designs that really challenge what they're capable of do. These are some screenshots of our apps, Tim Hortons, Burger King, and Popeyes. One of the things that is challenging about what we do is that we basically have one source code that manages all of the platforms. So one source code is both the native app, the web app, the desktop, and the kiosk all in one. So when we're designing, it's very important that we're kind of thinking of all the different viewports, all the different ways that people are going to be interacting with our platform. So, So it's a shared source code, and there's all kinds of experiences our apps can do, from delivery, pickup, curbside. We have offers. And besides that, we also focus a lot in terms of how the brands use it. How do the brands build out their menus? How do they build out their offers? How do they build out their homepages? The way we like to think of what we're aspiring to is being like a Shopify for our franchisees, where we developed a platform that's modular, that can support all of their needs, and that they can use to build out their business. So now I'm going to talk about our transition to Figma, because I think COVID definitely had an impact to us moving into Figma. Before Figma, we were essentially, so our team right now is, when we started, we were a team of 4 located all in different places: Seattle, Wisconsin, there's Texas, Arizona, there's different designers all over the place. And before, we were basically using Sketch and Abstract. Abstract, if you're not familiar with, it's basically like a Git for design files. It takes your files, it synchronizes them so that you're able to kind of merge your work together. It was fine. We used it, I think, for the first 4 or 5 months that I was here, but I felt like it was very much, it worked fine when we were all in the same place. But as soon as we started having different time zones, different places, it became very difficult to collaborate. You'd have files that were kind of like locked because you were working on it. And then even if it merged, it didn't do such a good job merging. We would have to have a lot of meetings to kind of synchronize in terms of what we're working on, what we're doing. So these are kind of like the core things that we realized we needed to do better. And Figma kind of allowed us to do that. So one of the things was asynchronous communication. So we communicate mostly through Slack. And one of the tricky parts is that with Slack, you could basically, it's a chat, and you could basically be receiving messages all times of the day. So it was important for us to have that and to be able to work on things at any time of the day, because we vary very much in terms of like our days. Like some people start much earlier because of where they're located. I think I'm probably the earliest time zone. I think Arizona and the guys in Seattle are probably working later at night. We needed to establish a design cycle, like a way to work together. We needed to have overlapping projects. And we need to have shared tools and good documentation so that when we're working, we kind of know like what's expected, what's the timeline, what we need in order to solve our different design problems. So I'll start off with our communication. So a lot of it was navigating the different time zones. So the way we work is we have a channel, we message things there. I think everybody realizes that you're not going to get immediate responses right away, depending on when you're writing into the channel. But we needed all that information to be there. So we use Slack a lot, but in Figma, what we'll do a lot is we'll leave kind of notes in our projects. We'll annotate, like if we're working on a screen and it's still a work in progress, we'll mark it and we'll designate it as a work in progress, something that needs review. So a lot of it is kind of when we were working remotely, it's almost like we're leaving each other notes behind as we're working. Because we know we can't necessarily have meetings where everybody can meet at the same time. The prioritizing our focus. So design requires a lot of work. So one of the things I wanted to avoid is having too many meetings where we're all having to be in the room, in the space at the same time. We probably have 2 meetings a week. One where it's the design team, we get together and we talk about what we're working on, what our challenges are, whether we need help, and then maybe we'll review something that we want everybody to take a look at. And then we have another design review with the product managers. Product managers are usually the ones that are in the middle of communicating with the brands, looking at analytics, knowing, listening to support in terms of things that people are having trouble either in UI or design related. They're the ones who know all the roadmap in terms of the features that we're going to be launching. They're the ones who prioritize what we should be focused on. So our meetings with them are usually to review the stuff that we're working on that we've assigned as needing review. And then those meetings are usually like an hour, sometimes longer, where we kind of reach a consensus in terms of the next steps that we'll be taking in the project. The other part about being able to kind of be flexible about time rather than like everybody working at 8 to 5 or 8 to 6 or whatever is that you kind of find a balance in terms of what's important. You have time to think and disconnect. So like, for example, for me, since I'm kind of like the earliest time zone, I'll use 8 to 10 as a time where I can organize all the tasks, organize all the projects, maybe do some design. And then later on, when everybody kind of starts trickling in from their time zones, we can have discussions and I'll message them in terms of things that we need to discuss. And we'll have a lot of like one-on-ones catching up in terms of what they're working on. Our design cycle. So like I said, we have one design team review. We have one design and product team review. And then I usually have one-on-ones with the designers throughout the week. And I space them out where usually our design reviews on Mondays. So I'll space out our one-on-ones during the week later on so that on Monday we'll agree, okay, this is what we're going to focus on. And then during the week, we'll touch base to see how it's going, if they need any feedback. Now, obviously on Slack, we're constantly sharing designs. And that's another thing that's great about Figma is that you could share a link of a screen or a project and you'll click on it and you'll see that project, exactly what that person wants you to look at. We also use comments a lot. We'll add comments to screens. We'll message a lot. So if it's not within Slack, it's through the comments capabilities in Figma, where we're basically adding a comment saying, hey, take a look at this. What do you think? Here's 3 versions. Which one do you like? That's usually where before with Sketch, we wouldn't be able to do that. Before with Sketch, we'd have to design, maybe take a screenshot, post a screenshot, get feedback, go back. Now we could actually just send you directly to the screen. We could even make changes right there. Like a lot of times I'll look at a screen, I'll look, let me see if this will look better in a different color or in a different font. If it does, then I'll come back and I say, hey, I changed the color, I changed the font. What do you think of it now? So it gives every person that's involved in the project the ability to actually see a version of what they're thinking, instead of like do the back and forth, like, hey, can I see this in this color? Can I see it with this font? We could actually do that amongst ourselves. Another thing that we also do is we share a lot of our projects with the brands and the product managers from the very beginning. So the idea is when we have meetings with them, there's not a big reveal like, oh, look, here's our designs, let's talk about it. Usually they've seen the designs, they've usually commented in the same way, like they've placed comments or even pasted screenshots of things that they liked or that they thought of. And then during the meetings, we could just focus on making decisions in terms of what direction we're going to move. So I like the idea of, and this goes back to even when I used to design in print or in graphic design, is the sooner you can get to something close to the final product, the better you are. So the idea of like getting rid of surprises, getting rid of like things that are like obscure for people to, I think the more feedback we get from people that are not so close to the design, the better our designs turn out. One thing that we've started doing in the last month is doing user testing. Let me go to, I'll show you. So a lot of the things, like we have overlapping projects. So one of the things that like, that's great about Figma is, I'm sure if you've used Figma, the most amazing thing is when you're working on a project and you see another cursor of somebody else working on something else right by you. I think that is a really bad, I think they call it the multiplayer. The multiplayer is super valuable because it allows for us to kind of see each other's work. Like we can see, oh, somebody else is working on something related to what I'm working on. I can then communicate with them to see how we can connect our screens, keep our UI consistent. The fact that we shared files in Figma, we have shared components. When we change or when we decide to do something different, we would add a comment so that people can approve and like and say that it looks good and it still fits the strategy. These are the platforms that we use. Figma, obviously, because of the way that we're able to collaborate. We actually use Figma besides design. We use it to like even brainstorm. We have a file that's all it is sticky notes, and we'll write down notes, and it allows for all of us to kind of like write down notes, organize them, organize ideas into different groups. Zeppelin we use to kind of take our files and hand over to the developers. For us, Zeppelin is where it's kind of like the source of truth. These are the screens that are done. And then Figma can be, even though you can do a lot of the same stuff in Figma, like inspect images and files and fonts and all that, we like to keep kind of like our final versions separate so that if we're working or playing around with different files, it won't disrupt what the developers are working. And in Zeppelin, we're kind of annotate a lot of the work that we do is iteration, our versions of design. So we'll be working on like the third version of a functionality, knowing very well that in production, you have the first version, the second version may be getting worked on or being QA'd. So there's all kinds of different levels of the design process. We have Slack for communication. We use Jira to track all our jobs. Google Docs for like brainstorming, communicating, documenting. The specs that we get from product managers are usually either Confluence or Google Docs. And then the last icon is user testing, which we started doing, where it allows us to test both the app, prototypes that we have, even just the screen, or even ask simple survey questions or multiple choice questions to people that we're wondering. What's great about user testing is that we could ask things to people that have no idea what our app is, or we could ask things to people that use our app and we want to know specifically whether a feature would be something that they would like, what things would they like that feature to do, how would they like it to work, what are apps that they like in terms of that feature, things like that. So one of the very important things is for us to write documentation. So one of the big projects that we've been doing is when we started with all the new brands is is creating components and documenting those components so that all of our designs kind of like adhere to a specific UI. So we have brand guidelines. We have right now, we like all the brands have like their guidelines in terms of like their colors, their fonts, even their tone, all the imagery and illustrations. But what we're trying to do is develop a digital brand guidelines in terms of what does the font look like? What are the sizes that you should be using? What does the button look like? What should the borders look like? The drop shadows. So we're still in the middle of that and developing that. And a lot of it is essentially taking what we currently have in the apps and in the platforms, cleaning it up, taking 12 buttons and simplifying it into 3, taking multiple colors, simplifying it into 10. So that's kind of like a work in progress, and it's probably going to be something that we continually do in order to clean up and improve our user interface. Other things that we do, we have design principles. We have overall design principles for the company in terms of like putting the customer first, putting the user first, being transparent, being intuitive. There's a big priority in terms of being ADA compliant. We've done a lot of training in terms of like making sure that our colors are ADA compliant, that our font size are compliant, that all of the code that we build is compliant. So there's a lot of documentation in those areas. And then, of course, the shared components. One of the things that's most difficult is when right now we're a very small team and we're able to review things. But I think as we grow, it's going to be important for us to have good documentation in terms of our components, in terms of like, this is how you use this button. This is how you would use this other button, or have to create a new button that doesn't exist as part of the library. So just to end, so we right now, I was telling Beto that we have 3 full-time designers, but we definitely need a lot more. We currently have 1 role for a product designer that we're looking for to fill hopefully this year. The challenge that we've had is that we're a very small team, so we're very hands-on. So we need somebody that can come in and can do a lot, is a good designer, knows how to work in a platform that is multiple viewports, that's multiple medias, someone that can work both in UX, in UI, and can do some user research, because a lot of times we're doing our own user research. We're doing a lot of testing ourselves, trying to figure out what's going to make the best design. Besides that, we have a lot of jobs for engineers, from front end to full stack. We also have some positions for product managers. If you're interested, let me know, and I can definitely give you the job descriptions for that. I think that's it.
Hi, thank you so much for that, Raul. I don't know if anyone has any questions. I'll give the ability to unmute them yourselves. Let me see if I can. Or if you have any questions, you can just add it on the chat. I do have a question. I know that you're like, kind of building the guidelines and all this. You're constantly building a design system as well. Oh. You're on mute.
So when I got to RBI, there was no design system. We had basically an app, and it was already working, but it had all kinds of buttons. So the first thing we started doing is just auditing all of the UI and building a design system from that. As you know, like a design system is ongoing. We actually, like, Burger King has a rebranding that's happening in the next year. So just as we kind of settled on a design system, we're now having to adopt it to this rebranding that is very different. But yeah, the goal is to have kind of an established design system, not only so that all our designers could have a better idea in terms of keeping a consistent UI, but also we want to tie it with the developers, because we want them to know, okay, if these are the buttons that we work with, these are the lists and the cards and everything, and they have components that they build with that are completely connected to that.
Cool. Yes. Awesome. So we're having some questions now. So I guess how, if people want to contact you, Raul, how they can do so?
So you could reach out to me via LinkedIn. I can also give you my email. I'll post it on here. Yeah, but LinkedIn, I connect through LinkedIn a lot. You could email me. I'm also on Twitter a lot.
Okay, cool. Big social media then.
Yeah.
Cool. Ben is asking if you would like to, if you can share like a type of product that you and your team are working on currently.
I was actually, let me see. I was thinking of sharing some stuff. Let me take a look at. I'll show you. Let me show you something. Hold on. I'll share with you. So some of the work that we've been doing recently is we've been redesigning a lot of our menus, like how you navigate through the menu picker. We did a lot of user testing in terms of what we currently have, and there's a lot of problems in how our app, I think right now works fine, but there's a lot of things that could be improved. And one of the main things that we noticed was the way the menu is structured. So let me show you. So this is kind of like what we've started working on. It's basically redesigning a lot of the menu picker, how you pick an item. We're trying to use a lot of like personalization, where we'll essentially pre-populate a lot of your preferences in terms of like your meal once you make your first kind of order. A lot of things that we're doing are trying to like make things a lot easier, and because one thing that people don't know is when you're ordering a meal, there's a lot of options, like from condiments to what you want on your burger. There's all these things, and users love that. Like users love the fact that they could customize, but you also have users who will order the meal and they just want it as it comes. So our way of solving that was to allow both the person to come in and see, these are kind of like the default settings for a meal. But if you want to change something, you could essentially click on it and change it, and then it's saved. And next time the whole benefit of having an app in your phone is the fact that it's going to make your order, if you order at Burger King a lot, it's going to save all your preferences. It's going to tell you when this meal is on special. It's going to tell you when something similar to this meal is available. So that's kind of some of the stuff we've been doing. A lot of the work that we're doing is part of the rebranding. So I can't quite show it yet. It's really, really exciting. But essentially, a lot of the work. So I think our day-to-day breaks up into three parts. We do a lot of design system work, like doing audits, cleaning up a lot of the elements in our UI. We do a lot of feature work, like a lot of the features that we're working on is the ability for users to customize their meals. We're redesigning the whole offer section. And then the third one is like there's special projects, like Burger King has a rebranding. Burger King and Popeyes both have a loyalty program that's launching in the next year. So we're building out the whole loyalty program within the app. Like, what does it look like to earn points, to use your points, to redeem your points, not only in the app, but also with in-store. So the ability to be able to get a receipt and scan it and have your order kind of like accredited so that you could earn points from it. So there's a lot of stuff.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Let's see, I have more questions. Sophia is asking, are you looking for any trainee position? She's just starting out in the UX world.
So right now we're not at a place where we can have kind of junior designers. I think we'll eventually have that, but for sure, I'd like to speak to you to see what you're working on. I can definitely like give you any guidance. In terms of hiring junior designers, we're not there yet. I think our goal is to kind of hire a core group of designers who are senior level, have experience kind of running, even managing a team, because essentially that core group is going to be managing junior designers, other designers within the organization.
Okay, so Sofia just email Raul.
Yeah.
He put the maybe he can help you out. Andre is asking, when submitting new design elements layout to developers, do they usually have input or changes? And if so, how does their feedback change the process?
So we have two. So we have two meetings initially. Before a feature is built, we usually have like an initial meeting with the product designer and the developer to talk about, okay, this feature, this is how it's going to work. The designers ask the right questions in terms of the user experience, and the developer asks the questions in terms of the technology. Then the designer will go back, design something, and then when it's presented to the developer, there's usually like grooming session where the developer looks at the designs and asks all the questions like, how does this work when this fails? Or do you have an empty state for this? Or if data breaks, do you have this? Or if there's a lot of the stuff that we interact with is what happens if this takes more than a second to load? Do we need a loader? Should you design a loader? So definitely it's a back and forth. A lot of the developers they use our screens to envision how everything is going to flow. We usually design screens, and then we also design both the happy path. We design error pages. We design all the alternates we could think of. What we notice is no matter what, you're never going to think of all the variations. When the developer is usually working on a project, he'll create a demo. A designer will look at the demo. The tricky part is looking at the demo in different devices. iOS, Android, it has to work on desktop as well. So it's a lot of back and forth. It's the best way I could say is when a designer gets assigned a project, like a feature, it's like their child. So they birth that feature, they design it, but they got to follow it all the way through to like QA just before it goes to production. And even in production, they're testing it out and then maybe doing user testing to make sure that people are responding the way they intended.
Yeah. I guess you present to like the actual journey of these screens of how it works, and then I guess you send them to the developer team to kind of like understand how the flow works, right?
Yeah, and a lot of when we hand off, what I like about Figma is we could actually mock it up pretty close to what they're going to be building, from like modals to scrolling to swiping. We actually do a lot of animations for. Right now, our app is very light in animations, which is fine. We're trying to get everything kind of organized and well designed, but eventually we're going to want to do a lot of more interactivity and animations, and Figma will let us kind of mock that up for developers to build.
Cool. Do you use any tool for animations right now?
Right now, Figma's been fine. We use for micro animations, we use After Effects, and we export it as Lodi files.
Okay, got it. Cool. So let's see. So that was a question that Jackie had too. So thank you for answering that. So has this, Adrian is asking, has this design been created in-house, or are you building off of an agency's deliverable from the past?
So the app, a lot of what we currently have on the app was from the agency that was previously hired before there was an in-house team, what they designed. But one of the things that I noticed, for example, is that when I started is we were looking at stuff in the app, and when we looked at the designs, and they didn't even match. And the reason that is because when you have an agency that hands off designs to a developer, the developer's on their own. So they're going to do the best they know, because they can't go back to the designers, because the job's done, the project's done. I think with us in-house, now it allows us to kind of do the back and forth, where we can look at a design. We could say, wait, I designed that button this tall, this high, this color. So all of these designs are, what's better is that we're able to work directly with the developers. A lot of times the developers have better ideas than what we do. Like we think of like, I think some of our designers don't really code, so they'll maybe mimic something that they know, and then the developer be like, oh, you could do this better with this animation, or we have this library that allows us to do this kind of interactivity. So with that communication, we're able to kind of build better interfaces.
Yeah, that's actually very important, because a lot of, this is the versus between designers and developers, right? And sometimes there's these, roses that happen within the two teams. But it's great to hear that they actually, cooperate, and they actually can come up with, solutions as well.
No.
And they necessarily they are not like the UX designer, right?
Yeah, and even in the development process, like I think if you're a UX designer, you understand that if a developer is building something and it doesn't make sense to them, you want to know about that, because if it doesn't make sense to them, they're also a user. So if it's not intuitive to them, like, oh, this should work this way. So I think we create a culture with the developers that they ask questions even if they think it's a silly question, just because we want to make sure that what we designed makes sense. And as they're building it, it makes sense that it's going to work correctly. Because sometimes not all the time are the developers that we have are amazing. Like they could do whatever we think of. In fact, most of the time they challenge us in terms of like, hey, can you make this more interesting? Because it's kind of dull. Like, can we do something? And I love it when a developer comes in with more creative ideas than we come, because then it challenges the designers. Hey, you're the designer. You're supposed to be impressing them. They shouldn't be telling you what could be done. So
that's awesome. That's great to hear. Great answer. Let's see. So Andre is asking, what's RBI's number one way to test user experience? Like under testing sites, in-person feedback, in-house opinion, etc.
So before I got here, stuff basically went into production, and you would see it in production, and it was tested live. Wow. What we've been trying to do is, first of all, we want to test a lot of our designs before the developer even starts, before they even start building any code. So a lot of times, all the designs that we have, we user test it. Just from even static screens, we'll ask a group of 5 users, what do you think about this? How long does it take you to find a specific button? Things like that. We have all kinds of environments. Once we've tested that and we figured out, okay, this is really good. This could go into development. We have development. It spends some time there. We have staging. One of the things that is different from RBI from where I worked, I think even though we have a lot of developers and they're super fast, the QA process is a lot more strenuous. Things have to go through a lot of phases before they go live. And then now we even push things live behind flags where the only people that could see them are RBI employees, which allows us to see it live, but be able to critique it. And at that point, even at live, we test it out as well. So we do a lot of testing with what we do, because any bit of mistake can cause something, a franchisee to kind of lose business. And that's not something we want to do.
And which are the ways that you user test?
So we use user testing for a lot of the in-person testing. And then, and then we have we actually have a QA team that does a lot of they basically do rigorous testing of all our features and all the so a lot of the times the designer and the product manager will come up with different scenarios for the new feature in terms that the QA person should test. And that's all done both in development. We have staging, we have QA, which is just before getting to production. And then even in production, we usually hide features behind flags to test internally. But our platform of choice is essentially user testing, because it allows us to both test the native app. We can test screens. We could ask random people, or we could ask people that have used delivery services, or people that are Burger King. We actually have so far we have a beta test group with Burger King that we asked basically from the millions of users that we have, we asked them who would be interested in testing features before they're live. And we reward them with offers or even paying them for their tests.
Mm-hmm. Wow, cool. Now that you mentioned, like, the app, and do you have, because, because of COVID, everything has come like really mobile to order on your phone, and then you go to pick it up, or, you have maybe like a service like Postmates, like deliver it to your home. Do you have that kind of integration with your apps as well? Or?
Yeah. So when we closed for COVID, the first 2 months we focused on setting up curbside pickup, all the different ways restaurants could do contactless ordering. We did what would normally take like 6 months. We fit it all into like 2 months. So we ended up closing our kiosk. So we actually haven't worked on kiosks for a while. The goal is to eventually open back the kiosk. We're going to probably do a revamp of the design there. But yeah, a lot of it has been just, I mean, if you look at, I think Burger King, even Popeyes, they've put out press releases about what their restaurants are going to look like in 2011. And the focus is going to be drive-through for sure. Like we envision people either ordering food delivery or doing drive-through for everything, because people have become so accustomed to just ordering on a phone, driving by and just picking it up.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's impressive to have, these companies have like so much pressure to put, like, to do the actual change to, these kind of like ordering on your phone, and kind of like increasing their, because there was a research saying that, a lot of companies were thinking of the innovation patterns and, trying to modernize all their aspects, like in a roadmap of 3 years, but they had to do that in less than 6 months.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, like how each company is kind of like adapting to the new environment that we're living in. So it's really, really cool to hear, like, cases like this.
Yeah.
So let me see. A question for Tana. Is there an ordering app that you look to for inspiration? Is there someone out there doing great in your mind, like from all these apps out there?
Let me show you something.
Ooh.
So look, we have a file in Figma that all it is screenshots from all the other competitors. We're constantly on their apps. We're constantly looking at things that they're doing. We even know when they're like A/B testing. So that's, for us, we look at all the other fast food restaurants. We also look a lot at apps that we just love ourselves. Nike, Apple. So in terms of, we definitely keep an eye on all the other fast food restaurant apps, but we're often very much informed by apps that have nothing to do with food. E-commerce, it could be. I've been looking a lot lately at Calm, at the meditation app, just because the way they organize their user interface, like the way they use micro animations, is really nice. I think, like yesterday, I think there was some news report about Dunkin' Donuts maybe being purchased, and when they mentioned that before, I think a year ago, Dunkin' Donuts was struggling, and then they accredit their app for their turnaround. And to me, that is like, if that happened to us, that would be our biggest claim of fame, that like our app is able to turn around a business. So I spent a lot of time just looking at the Dunkin' Donuts app, looking at what they do, especially related to Tim Hortons, who essentially is the same business model. Like the Tim Hortons is coffee. Like it's people commuting, people buying coffee 2 or 3 times a day. So we look at a lot of apps. For me, the ones that I love, Panera is one that I really like because of their personalization. I love the way that they recommend things for you to eat that you've never thought of, but they're kind of like nudging you towards trying something new. I mean, I told a lot of designers the screenshots on my phone sometimes are more than the pictures of my kids, because I'm constantly like taking pictures. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always cool to be like thinking of product of how everyone else is doing. I don't know if you know this website called moving.design.
No, but I'd love to see the link.
Yeah, I can put it here just to share with everyone. What they do is it's just a group of people, but they do that. They actually do just screenshots of different apps, and they're divided by patterns or by type of apps. Like if there are food apps, or if you're looking for onboarding of different type of apps. So it's a good resource. I mean, not for everyone actually, just to look at it, because it's basically that. It's just screenshots of apps, and they kind of like you scroll and you see like the experience, right? Of onboarding, or doing stuff like this. So it's really cool that I mean, I do screenshots as well, so it's not a crazy thing to do, guys. So it's very normal for us. So cool. I mean, if anyone has any other questions, as we're like approaching the hour, it will be maybe just to take one more question. Okay. I guess no. Okay, there. Yes, actually, there's one more question. Do you have a department budget around exploring these apps, like ordering through them, etc.? It's a silly question, but I'm interested in the company thinking of the UX discipline. Which actually is a very good question.
Yeah, no, we actually have all of our team members in all of our department, both developers, product managers, we require you to order at least once or twice, at least once a month from any of our franchisees. And you have to record it, and you have to give them feedback. And we actually have like a Jira task where everybody has to put in their recording. We usually do competitor testing via user testing, because we're able to say with user testing, if you're familiar with it, you could actually put out a test where you want to get somebody's feedback for your app or how your app compares to another app. So I recently did a competitor app where I had the user download one app and then use it, maybe create an account or order a delivery. And I actually, a lot of what I do is kind of create these promo codes that they're able to order for free. And then they compare with other apps. And then I asked them, okay, between those two, which one did you like? What did you not like about it? So we do that a lot. Recently, we've been doing a lot of our focus is on sign up and checkout and delivery. We also what's great about user testing is you could actually do a test that you not only have the user order something from the phone, but they would actually go to the restaurant and pick it up. And they would record themselves picking it up, and you could see what the food looked like when they pick it up. Our goal is to do a lot of that testing to then provide to the franchisees to say, hey, this is how they received your food when they order through a third party like Uber Eats or Postmates. So yeah, we do that a lot. We just started it. So we're very much focused in terms of like the digital experience, but I think eventually we're going to do a lot of tests that are outside, more omni-channel, like going to the actual restaurant. I know before I joined RBI, everybody had to actually work at a restaurant for at least for like I think 1 or 2 days a month. So you'd have to work at a Burger King or a Popeyes for the day. And what's I heard is great because you get to understand kind of like how do people use the POS, how do people use the kiosk. You actually get to see customers come in with their app saying that they want an offer or things like that. I think because of COVID they stopped it, but I think once we get normal, we'll probably do that again, and I'll be working at a Burger King or Popeyes learning.
Wow, that's really insightful. That you get to work in an actual restaurant to to understand more, like not just how the user ordering like a burger behaves, right? But the actual people working inside the restaurant as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool, awesome. So let me see. Yeah, we approach the hour, so So one last question. Tammy asks, are any of your positions remote?
So right now we're all remote until the end of the year. Our goal is to find somebody here in Miami. We're looking for a designer in Miami, in Toronto, or in Switzerland, because we actually have an office in Toronto for Tim Hortons, and there's an office in Switzerland. I know all the companies are moving to remote always, and that's always, I mean, we know about that, and so that's kind of like in the back of our mind. But as of right now, our policy is that we want somebody to be local that we can work with. Mm-hmm. We'll see what happens in the new year.
Okay, cool. Well, you heard it, guys. You have his Raul's email. So if anything, just contact him. So thank you so much, Raul, for this talk. It was great speaking more about not just about how you work, but the business in general, like, of restaurants. Is very insightful to learn more about it, like from an actual person that works inside. I think it was very insightful for everyone. Like everyone saying, "Oh, thank you, Raul. We love you."
Thanks,
so thank you so much for that. Thank you guys for joining the first Figma Miami event. Very excited to build a community for you guys. If you have any questions, or if you know anyone that would like to speak on an event, please feel free to reach out. You can contact me via the Figma webpage of the Miami chapter. And probably we'll see you soon. Probably around January, we'll have another event that we're planning on. So just, stay safe, and thank you so much, and see you soon.
Bye. Thank you.